Welcome back to another episode of Solo Leveling Ragnarok. Please like the video and subscribe to help us reach 1K subscribers. Previously in our story, the battle reached its climax as Suho delivered a devastating final blow to Lee Min-sung, piercing through his stomach and bringing the fight to a brutal end. With his mana completely depleted, Min-sung finally broke free from the Apostle's control, only to realize that his body was shattered, his jaw broken, his strength drained. In his final moments, he reflected on his past, his regrets, and the choices that led him to this fate. Yet, even at death's door, his ego remained unshaken. He was Lee Min-sung, the superstar to the very end, but the battle was far from over. From the shadows, the Apostle of the Iterum watched, plotting his next move. Using his sinister abilities, he drained the life force of his followers to forge a deadly weapon, a concentrated star fragment aimed directly at Suho. Without warning, the attack struck, piercing through Suho's back. A dark energy surged through his body, threatening to consume him from the inside. The system struggled to counter the infection, but after countless failed attempts, longevity finally succeeded in purging the corruption. Weakened but determined, Suho made a bold move. He accepted the Clash Change quest. A massive portal opened before him, pulling him into the unknown. As his allies were sent to the Shadow Dungeon for safety, Suho found himself alone in complete darkness. When light finally returned, he stood in a massive corridor, one that felt eerily familiar. What awaits Suho in this mysterious place? And how will he emerge from the Clash Change quest? Before we dive into the video, a quick message from the team behind the manga. Attention, Solo Leveling Ragnarok fans. The team behind the manga has been working hard to bring us free chapters. But unfortunately, their current sponsors aren't paying enough, making it harder to sustain releases. Since many readers use sites that don't accept ads, they aren't getting enough support, and despite their best efforts to fight against pay-to-read platforms, those sites are thriving while free releases are struggling. They even introduced a no-ad subscription, hoping to keep things running, but sadly, it hasn't been enough. So, starting next month, they'll be focusing on early access for no-ad subscribers while searching for new sponsors to avoid this from happening. So if you love this series and want to support the creators, read directly from demonicscans.org, the link will be in the description, and help keep Solo Leveling Ragnarok alive. Let's stand with the team and show them our support. Chapter 43 begins, and we see the Apostle approaching the lifeless body of Hunter Lee Min-sung after he failed to corrupt Suho using the fate of the mist burn through the star fragment. Looking at it, he thinks that he can't sense any magic around him and wonders what just happened. How did a gate suddenly appear out of nowhere and take the black-masked one and his companions away from this place? But it didn't take Lee Min-sung, which means that the black mask opened a gate that only selectively took his allies. After realizing that the black mask had escaped, the Apostle began to reflect. Every time he faced him, something unpredictable always occurred. Just like how it was with the darkness that stood against their armies all by itself, the story shifts to the Job Change Dungeon, and we see Suho, who was working out while thinking about everything that happened to him earlier. He wonders who was the one who attacked him, and how the hole in his stomach healed completely after he was transported to this place. He thinks that, at this point, his body seems perfectly fine. So he opens up the system interface to see what was going on and sees notifications informing him that the advancement quest doesn't allow other Monarch's successors to participate and that the Shadow Dungeon key cannot be used in here. Seeing this, Suho realizes that he can't use his bond skills or the key to enter the Shadow Dungeon. Looking up, he thinks that this place definitely looks like the dungeon where the tutorial took place in his dream. He remembers that it was a dungeon his father created for him and recalls his memories from that time, when he entered this dungeon, conquered all the floors, and fought his father on the final floor. He thinks that this time, he sees no knights that he can defeat to level up, and no weapons were given to him either. He wonders why this had to happen just when he lost Vulcan's horns, and wonders what was going on, as he doesn't even see the quest details, and wonders if the system wants him to climb the tower like before but without weapons or bond skills this time. Looking at the path ahead, he wonders if this place was always filled with maze-like passages and feels that this place seems similar, but something feels different as he was looking around. He notices that there were some places in this dungeon where distortions were occurring. As he was still in his thoughts, he spots something unexpected. He sees a massive door in front of him leading to another section of the maze. Standing in front of it, he thinks that there is more path ahead, But for some reason, the boss room was in such a random spot and wonders if this advancement quest was put together carelessly. Seeing no other way, he decides to enter the boss room and finish this quest quickly. As he places his hand on the door, he feels a small sense of anticipation, and opening the door, he wonders, once he finishes this advancement quest, will he be able to become strong like back then? He recalls that the first thing he faced in the tutorial was a knight and starts to enter the room, wondering if it was going to be the same this time too. Upon entering, he notices that the room was too dark to see clearly, but notices that someone was up ahead. Sensing his presence, the individual starts to get up. Looking at him, Suho was stunned as the person slowly started to approach. Suho stood there in shock, wondering what was going on, as in front of him was the other version of himself who completed the tutorial and climbed this tower. Looking at everything, Suho starts to wonder if he has to face his past self, as back then. He was strong enough to even defeat Baru at full power. As he recalls his memories, he remembers how terrifying the Baru from that tutorial was. As Suho was still processing everything, his past self prepared to fight and started to charge up a powerful attack. After he had completely charged up his punch, he turned towards Suho, who was still stunned. Terrified of the mana that his past self was emitting, he tries to tell him to stop, but it was already too late. And his past self obliterates Suho into pieces with one powerful attack. The scene shifts, and we are shown 3 torches. All of a sudden, one of the torches gets extinguished. As soon as that happens, we see Suho waking up back at the starting point. He looks around while panicking and wondering what was going on, and as he regains his senses he realizes what he was supposed to do. So he starts to sweat, thinking that he has to face that thing with his current strength and has to respawn every time he dies. He starts to piece everything together and wonders, why did he see himself in that boss room? He understands that in this advancement quest, he needs to beat his past self to ascend and wonders if that was even possible. But he pulls himself together, thinking that the system was designed for his growth. So if the advancement quest requires him to defeat the being inside that room, then there must be a way. Recalling his memories from his dream, he thinks that unlike the tutorial, this dungeon has multiple pathways. Considering how odd the boss room's location was earlier, there must be another door. Thinking over everything, he starts to sprint to look for it. After running for a while, he stops, thinking that it was just as he thought. There was another boss room door in this dungeon. He wonders what could be inside this boss room but decides not to think too much about that for now, as whatever it is, it can't be worse than his past self from earlier. As the door opens, he gets surprised to see what was in front of him. He saw another version of himself in the room, but this time, it was him from his childhood. As Suho was processing everything, his past self notices his presence and turns towards him with a terrifying expression. Seeing this, Suho gets scared and wonders just what the hell is wrong with this dungeon. He wonders if he was supposed to fight his childhood self and thinks he can't fight a child. But his other self had no issue beating him to a pulp and prepares to take Suho out. Suho tries to move but gets terrified when he notices that his body won't move for some reason and wonders if this child possesses the power of the ruler. As he was still thinking, his childhood self points its finger at Suho and turns it in a different direction. As soon as that happens, Suho's head starts to turn in that direction, and he sees the entrance to the room. As his vision starts to get blurry, he falls to the floor and starts to lose consciousness. As that happens, the second torch also goes off. After some time, Suho wakes up once more at the beginning of the dungeon. By that time, Suho was panicking, remembering what happened to him, how his newborn version just snapped his neck in an instant and took him out. He wonders how he was supposed to clear this dungeon, as both versions of him are opponents that he can't win against right now. As he was thinking of a way, a thought hits him, and he gets terrified. He wonders, if this dungeon was the same as the tutorial, he was only given 3 lives at that time, and he has already died twice, which means that he has only 1 life left. But as he looks around him, he sees something completely unexpected. He sees countless torches on top of him. Looking at them, Suho starts to think that this was ridiculous and notices some of the torches were glitching. With that, system notifications start to appear in front of him, informing him of anomalous interference. The system detects an error due to foreign material and instructs Suho to defeat the being inside the door before he runs out of lives. Lastly, the system informs him that he cannot leave the dungeon until the advancement is completed. And with that, the chapter ends. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, Please like the video and subscribe for the next part. Until next time, take care.